Erev Tov, good evening. It's a special pleasure for me to be here tonight, and it's a special pleasure for me to realize that I'm probably the oldest person in the room, and when I speak to younger people, somehow it reminds me of the fact that I was also once young, and that there's an advantage to being old, but there's a greater advantage to being young, because you are the future of the Jewish people. We are going to read in this week's Torah reading that God appears to the Jewish people, and he says, Anochi Hashem Elokecho asher hotzeisicha me'eretz Mitzrayim mibeis avodim. I'm the Lord your God that took you out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage. All of the Meforshim deal with the problem. Why does God introduce himself that way? Why doesn't God say, I'm the Lord who created the universe? Who created Victoria Falls, the Alps, all of the spectacular things that make up our world. And now we can see the universe as we have never seen it before. Well, that would be the introduction. And here he picks, so to speak, a minor point. I took you out of the land of Egypt. So I have often thought, really not that often, but I have thought that the Ribono Shel Olam introduces himself to us in a challenging way. If he would have said, I'm the Lord that created the universe, great, but that's got nothing to do with me. I cannot create a universe. I don't have the experience of creating the universe. And really, until our time, mankind was not really aware of what the universe was, of its complexity and beauty. But the Ribono Shel Olam, when he introduced himself to Moshe, said that Tavdu Nasa Elohim Alahor Hazeh. There's a purpose to going out of Egypt. Going out of Egypt is not an end in itself. It's a means towards the end. The end is Tavdu Nasa Elohim Alahor Hazeh. You're going to come to be a special people. And Am Sgula. Sgula Mikol Ha'amim. Kili Kol Ha'oretz. Mamleches Kohanim V'Goy Kadosh. Kingdom of priests, a holy nation. How are you going to get there? Well, if you're slaves in Egypt, you can't get there. If you don't have any personal self-respect, you can't get there either. So therefore, the Lord says, I'm going to perform great miracles for you. Miracle upon miracle. The 10 plagues is not only to punish Pharaoh and the Egyptians. The 10 plagues is meant to illustrate to the Jewish people that with every plague, their self-esteem is raised. You're on the way to be a Mamleches Kohanim V'Goy Kadosh. Look, water becomes blood. Frogs, wild animals. Everything is meant for a purpose, every miracle. So we are always faced with a question, the Jewish people at Yam Suf, a great portion of the Jewish people said, we give up, we're going back to Egypt. Lose faith completely at the first challenge. In a few weeks, we will read about the construction of the golden calf. Moshe is late. Okay, if he's late, then we're going to worship idols. We're going to become pagans again. How can that be? And in the middle, Moshe is able to raise them to a level where they all say, Na'aseh v'nishma. We're going to do the Torah, we're going to study the Torah, we're going to be the special people. How did Moshe do that? And the answer, I believe, lies in the fact that he showed them that miracles have a purpose. They are not an end in themselves. They are steps along the way for the creation of a great nation and for a people that will be eternal. But they have to be able to recognize it. They have to be able to appreciate it. In the Tanakh we read that the parents of Shimshon, Manoach and his wife, so an angel appears to her and tells her she's going to have a child. She goes home and she tells her husband at the supper table, you know, we're going to have a child. I saw an angel today. He says, I'd like to see the angel too. So he goes out the next day and asks to see the angel. He went out to see the angel because he was confident, as the Tanakh put it, that the Lord would not perform a miracle of his wife seeing an angel if there was no purpose to it. He'll tell us how to raise the child. He'll tell us, because that can't be the end, that you're going to have a child. That's a miracle, a barren woman. But that's not the end. That's a means to the end. V'hu yischil lahoshia es Yisrael. He will come to become the Savior of Israel. That's the end. So it cannot be that the Lord will have performed this miracle with the angel if there's not a purpose to it. It cannot be that the Lord took us out of Egypt if there's no other purpose to it. In 1948, and over the next decade, tens, if not hundreds, of people in the world declared their independence. For almost all of them, that was the end. The national end was to have an independent state. Not to be a British colony, not to be a French colony. We're going to be free. So we're going to be Ghana. We're not going to be the Belgian Congo anymore. But that was the end. So much has not occurred since then. Very little advance has been seen in the world for those countries. There was one little country that is an ongoing miracle from beginning to end. And we are here in that country, which we now take for granted. We're here in Jerusalem, which we take for granted, especially since President Trump bequeathed it to us. We're in this beautiful building. We have a view of the Kotel unmatched and of the HaRav. So we have to realize that we're the first generation in 2,000 years that has all of these gifts. Each one is a miracle by itself. In 1921, there were 16,000 Jews in the land of Israel. In 1929, there were 161,000 Jews in the land of Israel. In 1948, there were 600,000 Jews in the land of Israel. In 2017, there were 6.5 million Jews in the land of Israel. Probably the largest Jewish population in our history in the land of Israel. How did that happen? Halo dovarhu. And everybody came from someplace else, and nobody likes anybody else, which is the Jewish way. And yet, look what happened here. Look at the miracle of our existence. Look what the Lord has given us. But that's not the end. That's the means to the end. The end will be Tavdunas Elokim Alahor Hazeh. That you'll be an Am Skula. That you'll be a Mamlechas Kohanim and Goy Kadosh. And we have to therefore view it in that fashion. To be able to see it that way. I'm very happy that Rabbi Krohn left me one story that I could tell. I knew the great Rav of Ponevezh, Rabbi Kahanim and Zecher Tzadik Levracha. I knew him very well. He used to winter in Miami Beach when I was the Rav in Miami Beach. And we used to embark on fundraising missions. I would drive him. And I learned so much from him. He was an absolutely great Jew. The Gemara says that they asked Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rebbe, how come you wrote the Mishnah? After all, there were great Tanoim before him. And there were great Tanoim that were his contemporaries. So, Bamer Zachisa, why were you privileged to be the author of the Mishnah? So Rebbe said, Pamachas roisi es Rabbi Meir me'achorov. One time I saw the back of Rabbi Meir. Ilu roisi bilfonov. If I would have seen him head on, I would have been far greater. But at least I saw him from the back. My generation, we still saw Eastern European Jewry from the back. So that's not to demean, God forbid, what we have now. But those people, the factory that made those people is no longer in operation. So I used to go with the Ponevezh Rav. So he told me once, he told me many, many things. So he said, you know, I understand our generation. I said, Rebbe, what do you mean? He said, you know that if, God forbid, a family has a very sick child, and the child is brought to the hospital and has to undergo numerous surgeries, and the doctors practically give up hope, and the child is always in intensive care, and miraculously somehow the child survives, and the parents are able to bring the child home. So when they bring the child home, whatever the child wants, the parents give to that child. You want toys? Here's toys. You want ice cream every day? Ice cream every day. Whatever you want. So he said to me, he said the Jewish people were in the hospital. We were in intensive care. I remember how desperate the situation of the Jewish people was after World War II. Ein bayis asher ein shomeis. Everyone lost somebody. The British were running this country. A Jew couldn't get in. The Arabs are rioting. The United States then had anti-Semitic, openly anti-Semitic political parties that ran for office. You couldn't get in to medical schools. There were quotas to get into universities. No Jew had a high office in banking or insurance or manufacturing. And that was the land of the free and the home of the brave. And we got out. We survived somehow. So the Ribono Shalom said to us, what do you want? You want a Medina, you want a state? Here's a state. You want wealth? I'll give you wealth. The Jewish society has never known the level of wealth that it exists today in the Jewish world. Never. I see it with my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren. The expectation is you're going to have a home, you're going to have a car, you're going to have whatever you want. My expectation was that when I married and I would make $50 a week as a law clerk, we'd somehow have to get along on that. You want wealth? I'll give you wealth. Whatever you want, I'll give you. But you have to do something with it. I gave you a state, what are you going to do with it? Is it going to be just like Guatemala? Or Honduras? It has to be Or Lagoyim Nesaticha, a light unto the nations. I gave you wealth, what are you going to do with it? And the greatest gift that he gave us was the revival of Torah. Sitting in this room are more students than sat in the Beis Medrash of my yeshiva, my beloved yeshiva in Chicago in 1947 and 48. And that was the whole American Midwest. It wasn't just Chicago, it was Detroit and Cleveland and St. Louis and Indianapolis and Minneapolis and Denver. Echad me'ir, shnayim mimishpacha. When Ben-Gurion made the first draft for the Israeli army, so the yeshiva students received 27 exceptions. Last year they received 42,000. Now I don't want to go into the matter of justification or not justification, just the numbers though. Where did we have such opportunities to study Torah? Such tools, such institutions, such teachers, such a stature and a status. Ben Torah can walk in the street proud. My father told me, my father was a Lithuanian Jew, great Talmid Chacham. So I once asked him, why did the Lithuanian yeshiva boys marry late in life? Why didn't they get married at 21 and 22? They got married in close to 30, 35. And my father told me with brutal truth, he said no one would have them. They had to wait until the girls had no choices anymore. Because who wanted to marry a yeshiva student? And look what the Lord has given us. Look what we have. All of which places a responsibility upon us. Not to squander the gifts that have been lavished upon us. Not to waste the opportunities. The Jewish people as a whole is floundering. They don't know what it is to be a Jew. They don't know why, what, where. They don't understand. I had a member of my shul in Yerushalayim, Professor Klein of blessed memory, was a famous physics professor, and he was a Holocaust survivor. So he used to tell me often, in fact, I recorded him with a video interview. He said when he was in the camps, so he said he knew why he was in the camps. He knew the story of Rabbi Akiva. He knew the story of the Crusades and the Balei Tosfos. But the secular Hungarians that were in the camps, they didn't know why were they there? What happened? And he said many of them went and threw themselves on the electric wires and killed themselves because they had nothing within them to teach them who they were and why they were. And that is unfortunately true of millions of Jews in the world today. So it's our task, and it can be done. The Lord does not give tasks that cannot be accomplished. To tell them who they are. I don't have to make them, quote, religious, unquote. I have to make them Jewish. I have to make them understand what it is to be a Jew. What our heritage is, what our history is. How did we come to this? What's our purpose? Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, in his famous Sefer Mesilas Yesharim, begins, Ma'chovas ha'odom ba'olomo. What are we doing here? Unless we have an answer to that question, everything else is meaningless. And we do have an answer. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, Asher Hotzeisicha me'eretz Mitzrayim u'beis avodim. I've performed all the miracles unimaginable. You can't even make a list of them. But the purpose is Anochi Hashem Elokecha. That you should realize I'm the Lord your God. That you're here for a purpose. That you're eternal and immortal. That you're special. And somehow Aish Torah has been able to communicate that message to thousands of Jews. That was Reb Noach's heritage and his destiny. Tell them who they are. Yaakov Avinu said when he saw Ephraim and Menashe, Mi'ele, who are they? He knew who they were. The question is, do they know who they are? And Yosef answered, yes, they do, Tate. Bonai. They're my children. They know who they are. So as we commemorate his Yarchei, and as we celebrate this institution and the miracles that the Lord has wrought for us, and as we revel in the greatness of the Jewish state and of the Torah that it supports, the largest supporter of Torah in the world is the state of Israel. If you don't say it out loud, it will continue to be. We should appreciate what we can do. And whatever we can do marks our generation as the great generation in Jewish history. May the Lord bless each and every one of you. And may we know only good news. May we know Yeshuos and Nechomas for Kallah Yisrael. And we'll be zoche to see on the hill next to us the grandeur and greatness of the redemption of Israel and the rebuilding of Zion in Jerusalem. Amen.
Thank you.